website.
You are listening to KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank, your partner in possible. Who you do business with is more important than where they're located. Bank from the comfort of your own home with Emprise Bank. Coming up, the latest episode of the KC Laboratory Podcast with Ken Swanson, Craig Stout, and Matt Lane. Coming to you on the fastest growing sports media network in Kansas City. You can find all of our channels covering all the local teams wherever you listen to podcasts or on YouTube. Just search KCSN. And now, the latest episode of the KC Laboratory.
It's a live edition of the KC Laboratory presented by Emprise Bank, member FDIC. Matthew Lane, it's a good day.
It is. It's a good day. My mind is still rattled from our pre-show conversations. You have to give me a second. I'm still trying to wrap my head around the information about the Idaho State or Montana Northwestern Tech School basketball games.
Sure.
Craig, how are you doing? Is it a great day, buddy?
It is a great day to be a fan of the three-time, but with this roster, two-time NFL championships.
Thank you. I've loved hearing Maddie say it, and he just
buddy.
This is how nil my mind is.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
This is where you guys have sent me today. We haven't even got started. You guys have sent me to a place where I can't even remember my own bit.
Yeah, thanks for everybody that's hanging out. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Plenty of draft content today. Plenty of draft content on the KCSN channel. You have Matt Miller talking with BJ today. Myself, Maddie, Eric Galco talking wide receivers will be posting tomorrow. It is very good stuff. I'm very excited for y'all to hear that conversation. And there's a big mile marker hitting this weekend. The NFL Combine hits later this week. The on-field stuff starts on Thursday. We're going to preview the defensive side of the ball for the Combine. We are going to talk all things defensive players. What's up, Patrick? That's our guy, Patrick. He's hanging out right now on the live stream as well over at Holiday Distillery. He's the absolute best. But we're going to be doing the defensive side of the ball today. We'll be doing the offensive side tomorrow. We're going to be talking all kinds of, on Thursday. Sorry, we're going to be doing all kinds of draft this week. It's a big mile marker, and I'm sure what's going to happen is Thursday we're going to get into this live show, and there's going to be like 3 different Chiefs rumors we have to talk about. So that's kind of awesome too. I'm really looking forward to crazy season, Maddie.
You think the Chiefs are going to have rumors?
Of course they will, because every team will. Even the Panthers will have rumors. I guess they'll have rumors with the quarterback.
They're an open book.
Yeah.
That's true. David Tepper. There's no secrets with David.
Tepper. Wait a second. Of course they're going to.
Hold on. We're going to know the Panthers' entire offseason plan by about 3 p.m. tomorrow.
Are the Patriots going to have rumors like that? The Chiefs keep things close to the vest. That was all I was saying. I didn't know if there's actually going to be some rumors.
There's still plenty of things to react to, but we're going to talk about the prospects that are going to be at the NFL Combine. The defensive linemen and the linebackers kick off the NFL Combine week, and we're going to talk about the NFL clearly saved the offensive players for the most important window for the media and for the consumer, obviously. Saturday and Sunday, making sure that those guys were there. So they're kind of pushing the defensive side at the beginning. But defensive line's a very, very I think defensive line might be the most important testing group when it comes to the NFL Combine. They're kicking off right there because there is something to be said about athletic explosion at the edge rusher position, Matthew.
Well, yeah, and now that they've added the hoop drill to the Combine, we actually get something that almost looks like something you do in the NFL. No, they did add that, which was great. But defensive line, especially edge rushers, I think for defensive tackles, it still has its purpose, obviously, because you're getting athletic testing numbers. But there's, people have done a lot of studies. There's a strong correlations between jumping fast, running fast, and being able to turn wild at being a good edge rusher in the NFL.
Fast, not long, fast. Anyways, continue.
Yeah. Does it matter how far you can jump to be a good pass rusher, Kent? Ever thought about that? Unless you're Taco Charlton, does it matter how far you can jump and cross chop at the same time? doesn't
works.
matter.
Hey, it works.
So yeah, it's just there's a lot of information that tells you that you can get, especially about edge rushers going into the combine. Everybody, there's been multiple different people. If you just hit up a Google search, they can give you some general formulas of what you're going to come across, or if you look on Twitter. So you're mostly going to be paying attention to 3-cone times and the explosion test, the broad jump or the vertical jump. That's where you're getting most of the stuff. You can get into the 10-yard split, but like different tests will tell you what you need to know about these edge rushers. But I think another really important part is that they've added a few drills onto the field that if you watch them, you can see guys that have body control. You don't necessarily see body control in these athletic metrics. So you go out and watch someone run the hoop or do some of the bag or sled stuff they have now. You can see guys showcase their body control a little bit. So I would say edge rushers for me, besides maybe wide receivers, people usually get the most out of when it comes to the combine.
Oh, absolutely. And I love that they're adding more drills. Those are always the things that you want to see because, yeah, dude runs fast in a straight line. That matters. Don't get me wrong. Or dude is crazy explosive with a broad jump or a vertical jump. Sure, that matters. If it doesn't translate to the way that he can move around a set of bags, the way he moves around a hoop, you look at it and you just go, oh, that's why that didn't show up on tape. That's why that doesn't confirm some of my priors. And so it is cool. Yes, we are looking at it from the perspective of, hey, these numbers do matter because they matter to the NFL too. It's not just us draft nicks that are looking there and going, hey, that guy ran really fast, so obviously he's going to be good. Now the NFL is looking at that as well, but it is those drills. So don't get just so hung up in the combine testing itself. When you get to see those guys run those drills, when you get to see them do what they're doing out there, pay attention to the guys that look the most fluid, that stand out in those sorts of drills, and try and correlate it with some of that testing data, because frequently those are the types of guys that not only contribute quickly, but can sustain contribution throughout the life of the rookie contract.
Yeah, I do appreciate that there are more kind of drills to kind of check some of the things that you want to see with flexibility and mobility, a little bit of that. But I do think the density adjusted athleticism is still just such a crucial, like that, those explosive metrics. And it's not just if you can do it at 230. If you can do it 255, if you can do it 250, 260, that's when you're cooking. That's when it becomes a lot more highly predictive, when there's some density to you, when you're being an explosive athlete. And I think, the weird thing is with the defensive line, is with the edge position specifically, I do think teams subscribe frequently to that density adjusted athleticism. There's not a lot of those kind of athletes that fall through the cracks. There's not a lot of those kind of athletes that are available on day 3. There are swings on those kind of athletes early in the draft. And so if you can become one of those guys, if you can prove to be one of those guys at an event like this, especially on the defensive line, I think that's the defensive end. That's a big position. It can go a long way in kind of helping your draft stock. So, there's a lot of guys in this defensive line group. We're going to talk through some of them. We'll just walk through some of the guys that we're curious to see. I'll start with one. We'll start with a local kid, Felix Anudike-Uzomah, the Kansas State edge rusher. So there's a lot of things I'm curious about with him. It's the weight, what he comes in and weighs at. I think is going to be very fascinating to me. So like, what does he weigh? Does he fit the Steve Spagnuolo thresholds for weight, for instance? I don't know if he's going to. I want to know how close he is, though. Like, what's the choice that he's making, right? Like, is he going to try to play as a lighter edge rusher? Is he going to try to come in a little bit lighter? Or is he going to try to, maintain a weight in the 250s? Like, I think that's going to be a fascinating one for me off the top.
I love Felix. I think he's a great player. In terms of a Spags fit, man, he's got such a thin frame. Like, his waist is so tiny. I don't think he's going to make a conscious decision to come in under 260. I don't think it might be really hard for him to get 260, right? And so, shame on K-State for having to play him as a 4i so often and not let him showcase. But in terms of his combine performance, I think he's going to interview super well. And I think he's going to do really well in some of the drills. I think he will be explosive. He'll run well. I think he's got long arms, and he'll look pretty good in field drills. I'm curious to see what his agility test, so the 3-cone, the short shuttle, I'm curious what they look like, because there's times where I think he flashes the ability to bend, but how much of that is getting to lean on an offensive tackle? how much of that is removing the hands and giving yourself this really clean, good angle to take versus just straight up being able to bend. Because there's other times where his hips do look a little rigid. So I think he's a guy that, as a Chiefs fan, you're looking at edge rushers that might be available at the end of round 1, maybe towards the end of round 2. If you're looking at him, you got to be real curious as to what that 3 cone is. Then, like Kent said, what is the overall density? If he comes in at the 250s, I feel fine with him, and I think the Chiefs would still be very interested. If he comes in at 245 and maybe 6'2.5", because I don't know how tall he is, then you might start to be a little nervous that he's even going to be on the Chiefs draft board the way they have traditionally gone after defensive end. So check out his size, and then if you want to see him work out, I'm curious as to what the 3 cone and agility testing will be for him.
Yeah, that's going to be important. And him in the hoop drill as well. I mean, it's hard to say. This isn't a knock by any means, but he's got such a good pass rush repertoire that sometimes he makes it look easier, like he's able to turn the corner on somebody super easy, like he's able to bend around an offensive tackle. And maybe that's just him leaning on guys using his technical ability to beat them. Now, that's not a bad thing. That's a really good thing. But if he displays that bend as well, this is a guy that you're probably talking about fringe round 1, early round 2 talent, because teams are going to look at that and go, oh, wow, he's got that flexibility we're looking at. He's got the explosion we're looking at, and he's already got this technical ability. Guys like that go high in the draft, and guys like that are coveted by multiple NFL teams. Playing in a Power 5 conference, he's got tons of production. All of that definitely matters, but he in particular is a guy that can show up at the combine, show a little bit more flexibility, show that he's got that explosion, especially if he's at 250, 255. If he's able to do all that with everything on his shoulders and the brightest lights, I think he might be a round 1 lock if he's able to put all that together.
Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button if you're watching. Appreciate everybody hanging out with us right now. This is my time to remind you that the KCSN draft guide's available for pre-order. All this draft talk we're doing, we have articles about some of this defensive line preferences of Steve Spagnuolo. We have, measurements on, some of the cornerback athletic testing. We have some really fun features this year, like how the Super Bowl champs were built. I'm writing that one. And yeah, we got a lot of good content. 225 write-ups on prospects and how they fit the Chiefs specifically. It is a Chiefs specific draft book. There's a link in the description of this show. If you go down and click for $12.99, you'll get a pre-order of the book, which releases April 5th, but you'll also get 3 months of the KCSN Substack as well, which also means access to the KCSN Discord, which was absolutely on fire before the show. I mean, I was jumping in there too. So let's get a little heated in there. Anyways, yeah, there's some hot, but yeah, in the description of the YouTube, in the description of any audio platform you're listening to right now, you can pre-order that. And it again releases April 5th. It's going to be a lot of fun. Maddie, floor is yours for whatever prospect you want to talk about on the defensive line.
Well, I want to answer this question first about Myles Murphy, defensive end from Clemson, right? This is part of the topic of discussion in the Discord, and I don't think he'll be available when the Chiefs pick. Maybe the NFL does something silly and he drops like Montez Sweat did a couple years ago. So like maybe he's a guy that maybe you want to keep your eye on if you're a Chiefs fan, if they want to move up. But Myles Murphy is going to be huge, over 270 pounds. I think he's going to be tall, 6'4", 6'5", 270 pounds, long arms, right? He's going to be explosive. He's going to run fast. Just like with Felix, I have no idea what the 3 cone is going to be. It might not be great, but here's the thing. He's so big, and I think he's going to be so explosive. The 3 cone won't factor in when you go to plug in these numbers into like these force player multipliers to see how, to look at the edge rusher metrics that everybody uses. Justice Mosqueda created force player a long time ago. It's been very accurate over the years. Murphy can probably get there by running an over 7 second 3 cone, which most people like to see that under 7 seconds to feel good. Really, if you're under 6.89, that's the singular number, right? Under 6.89 by itself, you're probably pretty good. But Myles Murphy's going to be explosive. I don't know if he can turn. Chiefs probably can't draft him anyway. So let's go to somebody that they can draft, potentially. Derek Hall out of Auburn. He was down at the Senior Bowl. He plays very explosive. He plays very fast off the line. He plays with his hair's on fire. But same thing. It's a lot of these guys, you're going to see a similar trend. I think they're a little bit stiff in the hips. So which one of these guys, and I could throw other names in there, but I don't want to ruin anybody else's chances by saying Zach Harrison or Isaiah Foskey or stuff like that. I don't want to ruin. I don't want to ruin what anybody else might say.
He just knows I'm not going to say Foskey, so he's very comfortable.
I didn't think anybody was going to say Foskey.
Lucas Van Ness. There's a couple of these really big defensive ends that are power first players, but I don't know how their hips are going to work when they're trying to run it. So which one of those guys shows up and just has even a good or the best 3-cone time, or, looks the most fluid going through drills? That's going to matter. There's a lot of these power rushers that are vying for the same spot in the draft order. And I think that really could be a separating point. And I think Derek Hall is one of the, of that group. He might be the most, not raw, but he might have the most untapped, athletic potential of that group. He's the guy that I can see slight flashes of being it. So does he come out and blow away the combine? A little light for Steve Spagnuolo, but he has the arm length. I think he can add a little bit of weight going on too, if I'm just looking at his frame.
And if you look at the way that he plays, heavy-handed, strong run defender, likes to win with power moves. You look at a lot of the types of ways that he wins, the ways that he wins, and you go, oh, that's a Spags guy if I've ever seen one. And he is. He really is. Yes, a little bit undersized, a little bit there, but that's something that Steve Spagnuolo has broken from time to time, not as regularly as, some other things, but he has broken that. Derek Hall is very fun to watch. When you watch him there at the Senior Bowl, you see a player that clearly knows that he can overwhelm individuals that he's going up against, and typically he's going up against tackles, things of that at the Senior Bowl. When you watch an Auburn tape, you see him go up against a tight end. You see a tight end over him, that tight end's getting his lunch ate and pressed way back into the backfield. He's just a very strong individual that's going to crush the pocket, plays the way that Steve Spagnuolo wants his players to play. So Derek Hall makes a ton of sense to me if you're looking at a guy that's around at the end of the round, got enough production, got enough tantalizing things that you could take a flyer on a guy like that, know that you're at least going to get a very high floor, a leader in the locker room, and the potential to try and build on some potential athleticism there.
And real quick, Kent, I just wanted to say he's 6'3", 252 pounds.
I got it.
Over 34-inch arms. And this was measured at the Senior Bowl. However, even more importantly, of all the edges at the Senior Bowl, he had the biggest wingspan. So that tells you he has a big frame. He has wide shoulders to go with the long arms, and this allows him to add weight. Because at 252, that's a little light for Steve Spagnuolo, right? But he has the frame. He has the width in his frame to add some weight to him and get over 260 if he wants to, if the Chiefs really want him there. Okay, sorry, Kent, go ahead. Continue with your point here. I'm ready for it. I'm ready to
look like you had a great point.
I'll mute so you can talk.
I had the KCSN analytics department working overtime during this conversation. And I just wanted to let you guys know that Derek Hall is 6'2.5", 252 pounds, 34 3/8-inch arms. And this is where the analytics department really did some heavy lifting.
6'2 3/4, by the way.
Yeah, you're right. Dang it. That makes me mad.
You saw the 6. Anyone that doesn't know, metrics are listed in 4 digits in a row, and it's the feet, and then you're going to get a 0, and then it's going to give you an inch, and then an 1/8 of an inch next. Kent saw the 6 at the end for 1/8 of an inch and thought he had me, that it was a half.
Went out of, no, but here's where the analytics department did their heavy lifting. By a quick look, I believe he had the 6th longest wingspan in the entire Senior Bowl. That includes offensive tackles.
Ooh,
that's
good job, analytics department.
Yeah, thank you to the analytics department. That was definitely not me there. You talk about just maybe he puts a little bit of weight on. Cool. But also he's kind of got a little bit of a squattier build relative to these other guys too, where you wonder with the arm length compounded with, just the fact that he does kind of have that squattier build. Do they even care? Is this a guy just because of the way he's built a little bit, not necessarily the tallest guy, 6'2" 3/4 of an inch, as I clearly knew this entire time. I just wonder if the squattier build allows them to make a little bit more exception, even at 252-ish, 255-ish, somewhere in there. Maddie, Is he there at 63 when the Chiefs pick?
Right now, I'm going to guess no, but I think this all depends. If he comes out and runs a poor 3-cone time and is still in the 250s while being a little bit shorter, then yeah, maybe, right? I think there are still some concerns. He's a 4-year player at Auburn, started a lot of games, had production. His rush plan isn't complete, right? So there's some holes in his game as you go through and watch what he's going to do. There's plenty of talent and plenty of flashes of moves, but he doesn't have this full set of counter moves and everything. So if he comes out and runs a 7.23 cone at the size that he's listed at, yeah, he might be. Somebody still might fall in love with the player, but that athletic profile won't get everybody, really going to make sure they jump on him in the first round. So there's a chance. I doubt it. I doubt he's there at the end of round 2, though. I do think that he's the type of player the NFL is going to kind of like a lot.
That first step's fun, though, man. And I mean, yeah, he's powerful through the chest of a tackle, even though he's only 252. He plays with great leverage, and it's a lot of fun to watch. He's one of the more enjoyable players that I've watched. Craig, the floor is yours. Let's just go around and talk about some of these defensive linemen. What do you got?
Listen, we're sticking with Auburn. If we're sticking here, we're sticking with Auburn. I'm going a little deeper in the draft here. I'm going with Echo Leota. You want to talk about all the things that we talked about with Hall, guy that's 6'2", 259, 34.5-inch arms, quick first step, got all kinds of athleticism, was primarily just like a rush edge for Auburn. Didn't play a ton of base, was coming in kind of as a third down type of guy, rushing still from like a 4-eye, 5-tech kind of position, but has the speed to win at that and the size to learn how to play as a base guy. And that's what makes him so tantalizing to me. This is his first year at Auburn. He got hurt, tore a pec after 5 games. So he only started 5 games, but in those 5 games, he accounted for 10 pressures and 4 sacks. That's really good production coming over, taking a step up in competition after 3 seasons playing with Northwestern. Yes, it was still the Big Ten. Yes, he's still playing against guys, but it's the SEC. It's a step up in competition. He's got the ability to learn and grow as a pass rusher and a guy that you can put in on third downs, still know that you're going to be able to anchor off the edge on maybe third and medium against the run. And he's going to have the explosion to try and go up the edge, win a little bit with speed and athleticism while you refine him as a rusher. Yes, 4-year player, comes into Auburn, only plays for 5 games. I think that's why he's not being talked about in the same realm as some of these other guys, because he got hurt, not around for some of this process, was invited to the Senior Bowl, but didn't get to do all the stuff that he wanted to do down there. So a guy that's flying under the radar a little bit, a guy that Maddie turned me on to. We watched his tape and I went, oh, I like that guy a lot. So he jumped out to me. I'm looking forward to seeing what if all he can do at the combine here, because I think he might have eye-popping enough numbers to kind of climb the boards just a little bit.
I'm glad you brought him up because I do think like you're looking at just a hair taller, just a little bit thicker maybe. Than Derek Hall. But yeah, I think to your point, measurables are going to play a big factor. Medicals, I mean, this is the other piece of the combine. Medicals are obviously going to play a big factor for him too. There's going to be plenty of questions about him there too. So, I think this is an interesting one. It's similar to the profile. It's a little bit closer to the Steve Spagnuolo profile. I'm curious about the flexibility through the frame a little bit. Like, I think there are some moments that, you see a little bit, but I mean, running the hoops is going to be big for him as Derek Hall is too. There's some similarities to them, not entirely, but there are some similarities to them.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting that he's been a designated pass rusher for both Northwestern and Auburn and not necessarily a full-time player. And then even when you watch him, his size, yeah, he's listed as a little bit heavier than like a Derek Hall, but he clearly doesn't play with the same level of power. So it's an interesting combination of like when you look at the size and how his usage has been, and he's a guy I kind of wonder, why is he not getting on the field more frequently, because he does flash a lot. So this is the thing coming out of the combine. It's not just about testing. All the teams and media people are going to talk to all these people. maybe we're going to hear something that says, oh, well, he's been hurt frequently, or just for some reason that you might get the information of why he has not been out there on the field a ton. So yeah, I like Ekulioto. No one really talks about him. He hasn't been mentioned a lot, and the flashes are there for everybody. So I think that's a good guy to keep an eye on here.
All right, I want to do a speed round really quick. Let's all just kind of talk about one singular guy. We're not going around the horn like we normally do. We're just going to do a quick 30 seconds about a guy we're interested along the edge. We'll talk a little bit about defensive tackles. We'll talk a little bit about linebackers and get out of here. But one more edge that I'm kind of interested in. Let's go with Lucas Van Ness. I mean, he's like that dude. He's not going to be a Chief. He's just not going to be a Chief. But I think he's a guy that could ultimately climb even higher than we're all expecting, just because of the freak explosive density, adjusted explosiveness that we're probably going to see here out of him. There's expectations that he's going to absolutely blow up the combine. And I am very much looking forward to seeing what he's going to be able to put out there, because I mean, I think the story's kind of getting a little bit tired. He's not technically a starter on Iowa. It's how Iowa operates. They don't play young guys as their starters, but he played plenty of snaps. I think he might have even been second in Iowa in snaps, I think, along the defensive end position. So like, he still got his snaps in. He's still a little bit of an unrefined, unexperienced player, but my goodness, that dude is an absolute freak. And some of the workout videos that you're seeing of him too, leading up to this, it's like, okay, yeah, this is terrifying. So I'm going to go Lucas Van Ness, the edge out of Iowa. He's massive human.
Go ahead and go, Craig.
I'm going with Andre Carter because I haven't talked about him enough. We got asked about it, Oracle at DeFi. What about Andre Carter? Is he for real? I think he's more for real than everybody was making him out to be at the Senior Bowl. Like, when you go back and you watch some of the reps that he had and some of the ways that he wins with explosion. He wins with his athleticism. He doesn't know exactly what to do with all of that yet. Yes, he lacks a little bit of power. Those are things that happen when you play at Army, and football isn't the sole focus that you get to have as an athlete, as a prospect. You are seeing that as part of the process. However, when the narrative coming out of the Senior Bowl was, man, Andre Carter was awful, everybody needs to drop him, I go back and I rewatch a lot of those practices and rewatch a lot of those reps, and I don't understand how he and Isaiah Foskey literally being held up next to each other, and one of them is an automatic first-round player, and the other one is a guy that should be a end of day 2, early day 3 guy. I don't get it. I like what Carter brings to the table more. I like what you can work with and shape more than what I've got out of Foskey. So give me Andre Carter in day 2 if the NFL is going to be silly enough to let that size, speed, athleticism. He played wide receiver and tight end for a long time. If you don't figure out a way to use him at the NFL, I just don't get what you're doing here.
So I know I'm not supposed to go round robin here, but I just say Andre Carter, the hard part for him, those toothpick legs are going to stand out, and he won't have a chance to build up. The Army doesn't let you lift heavy enough, the way that he needs to get bigger. And since he's not technically employed by the NFL yet, he can't disregard that, right? So the lack of density in his lower half is still going to stick out like a sore thumb. That stinks, because I agree with Craig for the rest of it. I'm cheating. I'm saying Tuli Tuipulotu from USC, Keon White from Georgia Tech, who should be in this list, not in the first round, Dylan Horton from TCU, and Mike Morris from Michigan. These are all big 280-ish pound defensive ends / defensive tackles. Which ones of these guys look like defensive ends? Which ones test like defensive ends, and which ones test like these hybrid, maybe we can play a rundown on the outside, then kick inside as a pass rusher? Do any of them separate themselves from the rest? Because I watch them all and I see little flashes, but I can't tell really where I want to play them. So do any of these guys come out here and just showcase real edge ability, or are they all going to be these hybrid type players? I think the combine is a good place to kind of bunker bust a grouping like this, that I have most of them graded really close with each other right now. Mike Morris, I only watched post-injury. I want to go back and watch him before the injury to see if that's why he didn't look as good as the other guys. And I don't know if we're going to talk about like defensive tackles. So another guy that fits this mold. Okay, I just didn't know if we were going to get there or not, because I don't know. But I just wanted to, and Adi Tamiwa Adibare from Northwest is the same kind of player, though, right? He's a
KCK, by the way.
He is. And so he fits that same thing. He's going to test like a freak. He's going to be an absolute freak of nature here. He might compete for the best 3-cone time out of the entire defensive line group at 285 pounds or whatever. So just, can anybody else match him of that kind of same size and build?
I'm curious what he weighs in and if he tests. Like in like Kalijah Kancey, I'm curious if he weighs in and tests. You know, like these are the things I'm kind of
has to weigh.
I mean,
right? Like if you show up, you have to get measured.
Is he gonna do the Bryce Young thing where Bryce Young is going to like eat peanut butter and jellies for the next 4 days and drink as much water and milk as he possibly can, weigh 200 pounds, and be like, see? I
bet Adibare tests. I mean, I just don't see a reason why he wouldn't. I think he tests. And that number's
I do
silly.
too. I do too. Cancey's the one I don't think is gonna test. I think added to me what goes by Tommy, which is gonna or Tom Audible. Yeah, so I think that's gonna save us a lot of headache here. Because
the pronunciation guide on the Northwest site's great. It breaks it down very easy.
Yeah.
Well, Craig's gonna need.
I would still mess it up, but it does do a good job. It really does.
Yeah, so Kalijah Kancey, I'm kind of keeping an eye on him. Just like, is he going to be a guy that like comes in at 280 but doesn't test? Is he what? I'm just curious. I'm fascinated by that. Defensive tackle time. Maddie, floor is yours. Give us a defensive tackle you want to check out.
Just putting me on the spot. I got to scroll here for a minute.
I can do it if you want.
Well, no, okay. I mean, I've already got kind of where I needed to. This is one of our favorite guys to talk to at the Shrine, so I want to see what this looks like. Keandre Coburn from Texas.
Yeah.
I love him on the football field. I think he's what are we looking at? 344 pounds. 6'1", 344 pounds. This man moves. He moves out there. He gets out on the field. The helmet scouting or comparison here is going to be easy to make, but like it's hard not to see him and kind of like, oh, that's kind of like Poona Ford, who went undrafted and then had a pretty solid start to his career for the Seahawks. But like, it's just, I really like how explosive he is and how well and violently he moves off the line of scrimmage for a guy this big. I think when you see him get out there with this D tackle group, especially, hopefully the slotting puts him next to some other really big, thick guys, because I think he's just going to move differently than them. I think he's going to show some agile feet. Don't care about testing numbers as much for D tackles. I just want to see them move. When they have to lift their feet over the bags, do they fall 18 times like Tim Settle did? Or can they actually get their feet up and over the bags and stay balanced? So like, that's the kind of stuff that I like to look at.
Go.
I love Keandre Coburn. Like I really did. He was so fun to talk to. He was really fun to talk to. Really, really love him. As was PJ Mustipher. He was really fun to talk to out of Penn State. 6'4", 326. You know what? We love nose tackles, especially Shrine ones. We fell in love with Marquand McCall last year. Love Keandre Coburn. Really enjoyed PJ Mustipher. PJ Mustipher stood around most practices without a shirt on, and that man was just pure confidence. And I love him for it. I mean, I think he's a really smart player. Like when you turn on his tape, there's nothing, you're not going to be wowed, overwhelmed by what he does. He's not going to be a pass rusher. He's not going to really crush the pocket very much. And he'll tell you that. He told us that. But I think he's a really smart player in kind of the same way that you see Derek Nottie. He controls multiple gaps pretty well. He does a good job of basically not getting blown off the ball necessarily, but locking out, maybe losing a little ground, but still covering both gaps well enough to try and keep the running back honest. That's what you want in a position like that, especially a guy that's probably going to go a little bit later in the draft. Kent asked him how fast he was going to run and brought up some of the Penn State studs, and he went, well, I'm probably not running a 4.3. So don't expect that PJ Mustipher is going to run a 4.3 at that size.
I like how he just thought that because you went to Penn State, you run 4.3. It's like, no, bro. It's just because if you go to Penn State, you're going to exceed the expectations athletically of like most other programs there.
And I think that there's a chance that even at that weight that he does a little bit. And so, yeah, it's not going to be overwhelming. You're not going to look at it and go, wow, look at him. He blew the doors off of it. But I think you're going to look at him be pretty middle of the pack in athletic testing for a lot of the defensive tackles. When you adjust it for density, it's actually going to be a little bit more impressive than you expected.
Speaking of adjusting for density, my guy is Mazi Smith out of Michigan. Like just an absolute monstrosity of a human, just ginormous, 6'3", 340, made Bruce Feldman's freak list, 22 reps of 325 pounds. He posted a reportedly 44-inch vertical and broad jumped 9 feet 4.5 inches at 6'3", 340. And here's the thing, like, he's an intriguing guy to me because, like, there's not a lot of pass rush production from him, but there are moments and traits where I think you see a guy that could be able to do that. And when, he's playing the run, he's an immovable object. He's got some decent hand technique that, he'll be able to dislodge and get off and make a play. He hasn't necessarily put it together as a pass rusher. And, he's a guy that can move the pocket and push the pocket a little bit. And, like, that's a talent and a strength and an asset in of itself. But a little bit more pass rush production out of him, and we're talking about a first-round pick, I think. But I think he's a really intriguing guy. I want to see, if some of these reported freak numbers kind of match, what we see at the combine. And man, he's a fun one for me. Like, I like him as a guy to, like, it'd be fun to pair him next to Chris Jones. Like, I think Steve Spagnuolo is probably drooling a little bit about a defensive tackle like that, but that's another story for another day. Any other defensive tackles we need to cover here, Matthew?
Keanu Benton out of Wisconsin, 6'3.5", 312 pounds. There's no, like, rumors that I've seen about how well it's test, but when you watch him play, especially early in games when the conditioning's still going, the motor's still hot, he puts together some explosive moves. He has some lateral agility for a guy his size. He can really cross the face of a guard and, hit him with the powerful clubs. Like, I want to see what he can bench press. If he bench presses, they move the bench to another day now, right? So they get a day of just bench then rest. So more guys might do it. I want to see what he puts up on the bench, not because it matters, but it might be fun. And then I do want to see him go out there and do the shuttle or go out there and just see what his 10-yard split is, because I actually think that he might surprise a little bit for how athletic he is for a guy that's it's a big dude. So he's just a kind of, I don't want to say a sleeper. I think most people still see him as a day 2 pick, maybe even early in day 2, like top 50 type selection. But I don't know if enough people are talking about how athletic he might be for his size, because he really does. He carries 312 pounds really, really well, and then he can move with it. So I think he's a guy that might catch some people off guard that maybe didn't watch a ton of Wisconsin football this year.
Anything else? Anybody else, Craig?
No.
Okay, I got one real quick. I guess I'm just taking low-hanging fruit, I guess, but there's some curiosity I kind of have, because, like, Brian Bresee, the Clemson defensive lineman, like, he's another guy that made the freaks list, and he's got an ideal frame that, I think Bruce Feldman said he's going to run 4.7s, or he has been clocked in the past running the 4.7s, but he's just kind of been an enigma where, there's been a lot of, like, personal tragedy he's had to deal with, off the field that he's had to navigate, and on the field has kind of been a little bit inconsistent since. And so I'm just kind of curious to see, if he gets out there and tests, what the numbers look like. Because, like, I think there was a time where he was a top 10 lock for some people, like early mocks this time last year probably had him as a top 10 lock. Now he's bordering on the first round. And so I'm just kind of curious to see, like, if this is the start of the reascension, in opinion of him, what happens with Brian Bresee. So he's another guy I'm fascinated with. Linebackers, before we get out of here, I think we can talk a little bit about them. Maddie, you got one you want to talk about first?
Do I? Yeah, sure.
Is it Drew Sanders?
Let's no, I don't like to take the low-hanging fruit, buddy.
No, go for it.
I'm leaving that for you. That's your job.
I'm
taking Deion Henley, linebacker out of Washington State, a little undersized in the 230s. I think about 6'3", but ex-wide receiver, played wide receiver at Nevada before transferring to Washington State. That athleticism is pretty evident to see, and I think, the testing might be good, might be great. I don't know. It matters, and I don't want to say it doesn't matter, but that's not what I care about. What I care about is when they take these off-ball linebackers out there and make them go do coverage drills, they make them pedal out, shuffle out, change directions. I think there is going to be one guy that looks entirely different than everybody else out there, and it's going to be Henley. And it's like, that's what I want to see. I want him to look different than all these other guys. Even some of these safeties turn linebacker because they were too stiff to play safety. I don't think he's stiff. I think he's going to look more fluid than these guys that might weigh even less than him. So I'm excited just to see what he looks like in comparison to everybody else. I said it in our group DM the other day. I think he's kind of like a baby Fred Warner. That's how he moves. That's how he plays coverage. He's a lot smaller. And so that matters. That means you're not going to play the run as well. You're not as long. You're not going to be able to impact as many passing lanes. But his feel for route concepts and his natural ability working backwards and laterally in coverage is so good that like I felt okay saying that he's like a small version of Fred Warner. And I think he's going to look kind of fluid like Warner did at the combine this year in those on-field drills.
My guy is Henry To'oTo'o. He's out of Alabama now, but he started at Tennessee. This man's played in the SEC all 4 years in college. All he's done is make an awards list in the SEC every single year as a linebacker. He was an all-freshman at Tennessee his first year. He was second team all-SEC his second year. He was second team all-SEC when he transferred to Alabama and first team all-SEC last year. This man is a tackle collector, but he's very smart. He moves well laterally. He can cover some ground. His knock is he's not very big. He's 6'2", 228. He better move at that range, but he's consistently around the ball. And I think he's very fun to watch because he's constantly in on plays and he's constantly able to be where he needs to be. He's got a little bit of hip fluidity, can cover a little bit. He's not going to be a guy that you're going to mistake for a corner by any means, but he's got enough functional range and functional fluidity to be able to cover some tight ends, be able to carry guys up the seam a little bit, and be able to flash out against running backs. With how Steve Spagnuolo uses his linebackers, that makes perfect sense. Yes, it's going to be a high pick. Yes, it's going to be a pick that, basically middle of day 2, probably a round 3 type guy. I know nobody wants to see another linebacker get added, especially in day 2. But with Willie Gay's contract coming up next year, it makes some sense if they're drafting ahead for a guy like To'oTo'o to be there because he is going to have the requisite smarts, requisite ability to get on the field fast for Steve Spagnuolo, and the requisite ability to be around the ball, kind of like Nick Bolton is at all times, to just be in the right spot and having a knack for it. So I'm keeping an eye on him in the combine. If he shows up a little bit heavier, runs pretty well, he's certainly not going to the Chiefs because he'll go higher than that with his smarts. But if he comes in a little light, doesn't run great, might be a guy that falls a little further than we expect.
I'm going to go just a tick higher grade for me than Henry To'oTo'o, and I'm going to go with Jack Campbell out of Iowa. So Jack Campbell out of Iowa is 6'5", 250 pounds, and he has very, very good tape. I think he is a just exceptional processor. I think he's another one of those guys that's always around the ball. Good coverage instincts. I think the big question is just it's the athleticism for him. It's the athletic profile. And I think there's moments on his tape where I don't give him enough credit for his athleticism at times. And maybe it's just because I just see like just a guy that's kind of just he's just such a natural with some of his instincts and stuff like that. But being able to pull a one-handed catch away from his frame and stuff like that, like there's some moments there. But if Jack Campbell goes out and tests freaky, or goes and tests well, boy, I think he's gonna get snatched up in the top 50 picks. Like I think he's just like he's just rock solid. He's consistent, and if the athleticism shows to be a little bit more than we're given credit for on tape, I mean if I look at the top 4 linebackers outside of Henry To'oTo'o, he's the best linebacker today of those 4, and it's not even close. So those kind of measurables, and if he pairs that with good athletic testing, I mean, there's gonna be some interesting conversations that start happening. Maddie, who you want to go to next?
Safeties.
Those are. Oh yeah, we do have to go to that too, don't we?
So I mean, unless there's another linebacker, I think Campbell's a great one. I think he's going to surprise this testing for his size. I think that was actually a really good one. So I'm glad you mentioned him. I'm ready to go to safety.
Logan Wilson or Jack Campbell? Better prospect coming out.
Jack Campbell.
Jack Campbell. You like
Jack
Campbell?
I think he's a lot smarter.
Gotcha.
He's Josie Jewell level of smart, but I think he's actually big and not super athletic, but athletic. So you look at what Josie Jewell's transition to the NFL from the same program has kind of been, and how he's been good for Denver when he plays. Imagine that, but more athletic and big now, actively big. I don't know. I think he's very underrated. He's really good. I'm ready for safeties unless Kent has another linebacker he wants to shout out.
No, we're good. We're good. Go to the safeties.
Sidney Brown, safety out of Illinois, a little bit undersized, but I think he's going to blow the doors off the combine. I think he's going to be super explosive. You've seen him down. If you watch Illinois' defense, everybody on that thing flies around and hits like a Mack truck. But then you see this guy, like a man after my own heart. He comes out, him and his brother, short shorts, cut real tight at the Senior Bowl. Got to show off the quads a little bit, and then he's out there and he's flying around. Whether he's playing deep, playing in the box, Sidney Brown, I think, is a safety that's, I don't want to say going under talked about, but I think some people are a little scared off of like his size compared to some of the other safeties in this class. And I just had it pulled up here, and I got to come back and find it again unless my analytics team is already on top of it.
Nope.
No. Okay. He's 5'10", 213 pounds. So he's real thick, but I think he's going to be super explosive, and I think he's going to run better than what people think. So maybe he's not your traditional dimensions for a safety, but the explosive testing, I think he's going to change directions well. He's shown you man coverage ability, the ability to play really good in the box. His angles that he takes in the red zone especially, but when he does play deep to come down and help play the run are phenomenal, and he has the athleticism to really get places in a hurry. I just think he's going to surprise, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, wait, maybe it's not just a two-man race for the top safeties in this class. Maybe there's a third guy that's right there on the fringe as well.
My guy, I'm taking the lowest possible hanging fruit here, is Brian Branch. Brian Branch was on Bruce Feldman's freaks list.
Working out with the CDs.
What's that?
He's working out with the corners. It's just interesting.
He is a safety that is so good that he's going to do cornerback drills. And you know what? He's going to show out with his athleticism with those corners. Like, I'm going to put him into the CBAT formula because he's playing with the CBs. So it's going to be fun to watch. He's just such an incredibly smart player. He's got the athleticism at the next level. You're not looking at a guy that you're going, yeah, he's a smart Alabama safety. He'll find a role somewhere and be able to play in that. He's going to be an impact player. He's going to be a guy that's going to show up on Sundays, making plays from the get-go. Now, a lot of the stuff that he was on Bruce Feldman's freaks list, we're not going to see a ton of it. Squat in 565, power clean at 335, but they clocked him at 22.3 miles an hour on their GPS. That is flying for a safety. You've got a guy that can play on the back end, has the range to do it, but also what I really love, not just the ball hawking, but his ability to come up and make plays, filling the alley from some of those quarters, split safety looks. I love Brian Branch. If he's available when Kansas City's on the clock, I don't care what the need is. I don't care what they have on their roster. I want Brian Branch. He is so much fun to watch. Love to see him this weekend.
We've had that conversation about Brian Branch a few times.
Love him.
So I swear I don't have Bruce Feldman's article open right now. I'm pretty sure Jair Brown, the Penn State safety, did make that list as well. But here's the thing. I think there's a lot of people touting the athletic profile. And I do think that he moves a little bit differently than other people. But I don't know if it's the same kind of freakish athleticism that I come to expect from a freak list safety. And if that's not the case, if he just tests like a good athlete, I think you're going to start seeing some people ask some questions about Jair Brown, because the tape's just inconsistent. Like, he's just an inconsistent tackler. I don't know if he has great instincts. I don't know. He doesn't always take great angles to the football. Like, I'm not just trying to sit here and dunk on him, but like, it's just the tape doesn't match, the expectation I had coming into watching him, both with the athletic profile, which I think he's a very good athlete. I don't know if he's the kind of athlete that's going to make people kind of dismiss some of the inconsistencies that he has on tape, if that makes sense. And that's a question I have about him going into this, into the NFL Combine, because I think he needs to blow it up, just to kind of confirm what everybody's so interested in him about. Because I think the tape is rather it's not as encouraging for me, I guess you could say. Any other quick safeties or anything you have to say about Jair Brown? You look like you want to say something about him.
No, I mean, I'm with the majority of what you said, and maybe just even lower at what the tape looked like. Great athlete. He's from Penn State. He's probably going to test like an absolute freak.
We'll see.
So like I actually think he might test like that.
He needs to.
Brandon Joseph, safety from Northwestern to Notre Dame, I don't think he's going to test great, but if he can test even okay, and that's going to be huge for him. This is a guy that people were putting in first-round mocks like 2 years ago. He was underclassed, but like they wanted to get him in the first round because of the ball skills and how natural he looked playing deep. Then a rough last year with Northwestern, he transfers to Notre Dame, and he wasn't bad. Just there's so many questions about his long speed, his agility and stuff like that. He might just be too poor of an athlete, is the thought, to get to the NFL and be an impact player. I just want to see what he tests. Can you come out and just test like an adequate NFL safety? Because I think his instincts and his ball skills are really good. You just come out and show you're an NFL level athlete. Not great, not perfect, elite, just fine. And I think that's going to be huge for him. And so I think he's a safety that has a lot that actually he can make up ground here at the combine.
All right, let's jump to the cornerback position. We're going to go right back to Maddie.
Great position.
Well, this is your position in the KCSN draft guide, which the link is in the description. You can pre-order the KCSN draft guide for $12.99, and the link is in the description. You get 3 months of the KCSN Substack. But anyways, Matthew, first cornerback that you're excited to see at the NFL Combine.
DJ Turner from Michigan, 6 foot, 180 pounds. He is right there in setting up to break the record for the 3-cone drill at the NFL Combine, set a couple years ago. So by Jordan Thomas or something like that from Oklahoma. I forget his name, but an Oklahoma corner, set the record a couple years ago. And for the 3-cone, DJ Turner is apparently reportedly like not a 100th of a second off or whatever from doing that, according to Bruce Feldman's Freak List, I believe is where it came from. I also think he's going to run very fast. It is just a super athletic corner, a little undersized, but man, you watch him. Nobody beats him deep over the top. He can change directions with any wide receiver on the drop of a dime. He's just kind of small and, can get boxed out by big guys, but that doesn't matter at the combine. There ain't no receiver out there to box you out. So go out there and, shine, put your best foot forward. So he's kind of the guy I think that has the best chance to really set a record or break kind of a record, which is always fun.
By the way, that is a Jordan Thomas, 2018.
Oh my God, I nailed it.
Corner. Yeah, he was a UDFA, but really showed off with the 3-cone.
His tape wasn't near as good though.
6.28. So that is elite. For reference, over the past 10 years, the second highest is Buster Screen, or second lowest is Buster Screen. It's 6.44. Like you are talking elite level 3-cone time. I was actually going to pick DJ Turner as well because he's one of the few guys I like paying attention when I'm doing my CBAT stuff. One of the few guys that has a chance to be tier 1 despite not going to be a very long, tall guy, because CBAT does factor in. It does factor in, but he's going to run fast enough and be fluid enough to where he could go elite in both of those to get into tier 1 CBAT. So I'm going to take him, but I'm going to go with Clark Phillips III just because I really love watching him play football. Small guy, really, really small guy, at 5'10", 183, not going to be the best athlete. As a matter of fact, probably a little tight hip. I just love how smart he is, how intense he is, how competitive he is. Like he's almost my exact kind of corner. If he just had a little more length, it would be almost ideal. Really good in zone, really fun to watch. A guy that I think NFL teams probably like quite a bit, but this weekend is very big for a guy like that. If he comes out and he measures even smaller or weighs a little bit, less, doesn't show up athletically the same way, he's going to go to one of those guys that it's like, well, we were looking at him late day 2, early, at the early part of day 3 to mid day 3 kind of guy, just because of that athleticism and size.
I'm going to go local, and I'm going to go with Julius Brents out of Kansas State. So 6'3", 202 pounds, 33 3/4 inch arms measured at the Senior Bowl. He had the longest arms of the cornerback group by an entire inch. Like, just exceptional, rare measurables. If he goes out and tests, well, he's going to go flying up boards. I have some questions personally about his hip tightness and about his long speed. If he can help answer both of those questions a little bit with some of his athletic testing and in some of those drills, I think that's going to go a big way, and it's going to help him in a big, big way. He kind of got beat over the top some. I mean, and he gave up some plays down the field. And I don't know if I think his hips are tight, but there's ways to work around that too. Don't get me wrong, But I think if he goes out and he answers some of those questions, that pool of teams willing to look at him becomes a lot wider. There's probably, I think there's plenty of teams that'll just look to keep him on a linear plane. Think Seattle, Tariq Woolen and him, but that would be terrifying. But yeah, I think athletic testing is a big thing for him, and I mean he's got incredible measurables. So I'm very curious to check him out. Maddie, any other cornerback expert?
Riley Moss.
I was gonna go Riley Moss. Dang it.
His vertical is gonna be in the 40s, like over 40 inches. And he in high school he was a track stud, like a sprinter, a hurdler. He was a stud. So he was the state champion in the 110 meter hurdles. He set an Iowa all-time record, 13.85 for any of you hurdlers out there that know if that's good or not.
That's really fast.
So he ranked top 10 nationally at a state meet. So he was really good at the hurdles. He also did the 400, 800 meter, or part of the 400, 800 meter relay team. And like I said, he's going to jump like crazy. So Riley Moss is going to be an athletic kind of phenom there. Hey, look, there we go. So here's the thing. This is going to catch people by surprise. They don't, it is what it is. He's a white cornerback. Okay. He is. And he's going to come out here and test like a freak. And that's just, that's fun television for everybody. It doesn't happen often. We don't going to sugarcoat it.
The thing that's sad too is he's got 30 3/8-inch arms. So even if athletically he's able to hang, they're going to look at his arms and go, well, he's a safety.
Nah, he should be.
The NFL's embracing it lately. They really are embracing the shorter arms.
Iowa, they played a lot of zone. I get the desire to maybe switch him over to safety. He tackles well. I think there's some hip stiffness and or lack of man coverage feel. They let him play a lot of zone coverage and bail out. But I mean, over 30-inch arms. We're nearing 30 and a half. I think the NFL would be fine with the arm length with the rest of the athletic profile. I actually think just by these numbers, he might give Craig's CBAT 1 a push just if he can. I mean, even with the small arm length, because he's not like he's short, over 6 foot, 190 some pounds. So he's just a guy to keep your eye on.
His his wingspan is hilariously short too. Just 73 and 3/8.
I dropped one thing about wingspan to Kent in the DMs one time, and now he's all over wingspan every time he looks at measurables. It's great.
Listen, I'm just saying the NFL in the past couple of years has taken a lot of those shorter arms and they've turned an eye. They're breaking the mold a little bit more. I mean, Trent McDuffie last year, Roger McCreary last year. The NFL is looking the other way at arm length a lot more as of late.
Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button if you're watching this. Really appreciate everybody that's been hanging out with us today. We went nearly an hour today. Appreciate it. I don't know if you guys got any more corners that you want to look at, but I think I'm good to go if you are. So
I hope Keitrell Clark chirps at the sideline.
After
drills. Just
he's
talk at the sideline after he does a drill.
Him and Clark Phillips can just chirp at each other the entire time, and I'll watch that.
Let's go.
That'll be must-see TV. I hope we get that. That's going to do it for the KC Laboratory. Thank you all so much for watching, spending an hour with us. Hit that like button and the subscribe button on the way out. We appreciate you, and we'll catch you